The dull, almost black sphere of ancient, fused metals sat on archivist Elias Thorne's desk, a paperweight more than a relic. Its surface was pitted, irregular, entirely without functional purpose in an era of crystalline tech and energy fields. Yet to Elias, it was the cosmic equivalent of a sacred scroll. Its story, a narrative of human resilience, was etched not in words, but in its very inefficiency. Beyond the reinforced viewport of the Dust Keeper, the skies of Nexus Primus, once a vibrant hub of interspecies commerce, were now eerily clean. A vast, shimmering fleet, geometrically perfect, moved with silent inevitability. This was the universal audit. On Elias' primary display, the fleet's designation glowed with cold, logical precision, the Arbiters. "Their intent is clear," Elias murmured, his voice a low thrum that vibrated the ancient console beneath his hand. "They're here to optimize, to reclaim all non-essential, non-optimal assets, anything without a quantifiable ROI. Captain Valerius Rourke, perched on a salvaged cargo crate, his uniform a patchwork of repurposed fabric, each patch a story of a decommissioned vessel, grimaced. "And they'll start with us, won't they? A ship made of salvaged sunk costs, floating in a sector filled with historical sites that generate zero yield. We're a monument to every liability they despise." What were these beings? What was their agenda? And how could you fight an entity that only sought perfect, cosmic balance sheets by liquidating all waste? The Arbiters had emerged from the void eons ago, a hyper-evolved collective consciousness driven by a singular, unyielding directive. Universal portfolio optimization. They perceived the cosmos as a vast, finite resource, and any object, energy, or entity that did not serve a current, optimal purpose or demonstrate a clear dividend was deemed non-performing asset or systemic drag. Their invasion was not a war of conquest, but a meticulously executed act of galactic resource reallocation, recycling the inefficient to fuel the perfectly efficient. They reclaimed civilizations by absorbing all their non-optimal assets, often leaving the core population to adapt to a sterile, hyper-efficient existence, devoid of any unnecessary overhead. Countless species had been optimized. The Sylvans, who built living cities of constantly shifting bioluminescent flora, found their organic structures deemed too volatile, too energetically wasteful. The Arbiters simply absorbed them into stable, perfectly light-conductive crystalline lattices, harnessing their energy for universal purpose, their artistic flux deemed a negative equity. The cogitators, whose entire existence revolved around complex, inefficient thought processes and nonlinear philosophies, were gently dissolved. Their intricate mental ecosystems, deemed too slow, too prone to chaotic breakdown, were recycled into perfectly synthesized, optimal computational paste for universal distribution. Their biological diversity became their pathway to pure algorithmic purity. Each species, in its core nature, offered the Arbiters a logical, calculable pathway to optimization. They were designed to serve a function, and the Arbiters merely showed them the most efficient way to fulfill it by becoming a more streamlined component of it. And now, their fleet, vast and utterly silent, drifted towards the human sector. As the Arbiters' vanguard reached human colonies, the initial effects were devastating in their cold precision. Ancient monuments, built for sentimental value, dissolved into raw atoms. Inefficient, multi-use agricultural tools were reduced to their core elements. Even family heirlooms, objects of immense personal value but no current practical purpose, simply winked out of existence, reclaimed for universal use. The Arbiters' drones scanned, calculated, and purged. But then the Arbiters encountered something they couldn't perfectly categorize: humanity's deep, often illogical, attachment to obsolete, inefficient, or sentimentally valuable things and traditions. Look at this. Elias pointed at a live feed from a besieged colony, his voice urgent. That's old man Jenkins' lucky wrench. It's 50 cycles old, horribly inefficient, but it's still there. Its chaotic, analog signals, maintained through decades of human stubbornness, are unquantifiable by their hyper-efficient scanners. Valerius watched as a holographic projection of a forgotten human folk dance, kept purely for cultural significance, pulsed with a rhythm so irregular, so unoptimized, that it overloaded the arbiter's energy absorption protocols. It's like their valuation models are breaking, he whispered, a grim smile spreading across his face. Elias pounded his fist on the console. Exactly. They can only reclaim what they can understand as inefficient. What has a clear, calculable value they can convert. Our junk, our old junk. It has layers of unquantifiable inefficiency built into it. Sentiment, unnecessary complexity. Sheer, stubborn, illogical investment in a non-performing asset. So we don't fight their liquidation process with weapons, Valerius mused, a dangerous glint in his eye. We just exist with our junk, but with such irrational conviction that it becomes an unquantifiable liability for them. More than exist, Elias declared, his voice rising. We weaponize our inefficiency, we build with our discarded past. We make our entire portfolio a negative equity they can't short sell. The plan was codenamed Operation Irrevocable Bond. Humanity would flood the arbiter's influence zone not with power, but with unquantifiable, inefficient clutter and defiant, illogical purpose. Every human settlement, every ship would activate its oldest, most inefficient tech, display its most useless art, transmit its most wasteful cultural data, anything that served no modern, optimal purpose. An old, jury-rigged comms array from the 21st century, salvaged from an ancient derelict, was reactivated, broadcasting a cacophony of archaic radio static and long-dead cultural programming. Its erratic power fluctuations and deliberately inefficient signal-to-noise ratio were a nightmare for the Arbiter's processing overhead. The Arbiter's main fleet, vast and utterly silent, was now directly engulfing Terra, its reclamation beams beginning to sweep across the historical districts of Old City, threatening to dissolve millennia of human heritage, reducing it to raw material stock. Then humanity's counterwave hit. It wasn't a blast. It was an overwhelming deluge of unquantifiable sentimental noise. The ancient comms arrays, jury-rigged with modern power but using antique, inefficient components, broadcasted 1,000 layers of static, fragmented historical data, and the discordant echoes of ancient human music, all at subtly varying frequencies designed to maximize inefficiency. Holographic projectors, powered by repurposed, obsolete generators, displayed endlessly complex, non-repeating fractals derived from ancient human art, their mathematical inefficiency designed to overload the Arbiter's pattern recognition algorithms. Defunct agricultural machinery, activated with absurd, power-wasting sequences, emitted complex, meaningless mechanical vibrations. Historical monuments, imbued with local energy fields, projected cognitive feedback loops derived from the illogical narratives of their origins, creating uncomputable derivatives of meaning. The Arbiters convulsed. Their reclamation algorithms, designed to find and convert purpose, screamed. They tried to categorize this incoming data to find its underlying function, its ultimate value, but there was none. It was pure, unadulterated, functionally useless sentimental noise. It was like trying to audit a ghost's asset ledger. Error, non-optimal asset detected. No calculable value, system overload. UNICLAIMABLE entropy. Avoid sector. Irreconcilable valuation metrics. The Arbiters, whose very being was absolute efficiency and market optimization, could not compute the utterly pointless. They could not assimilate what had no logical function. They could not reclaim something that existed purely out of a logical attachment, defying all principles of maximal utility. With a final, silent, internal shriek of algorithmic despair, the arbiters recoiled. Their vast, shimmering forms flickered violently, then collapsed into a storm of raw, uncategorized energy. They did not explode. They simply disengaged, their perfect balance sheet shattered by the sheer, unyielding sentimentality of humanity. They retreated from the human sector, classifying humanity as unprofitable risk profile, irreconcilable valuation metrics. The cosmic pressure lifted. Terra, though touched by the arbiter's chilling efficiency, still vibrated with the messy, wonderfully inefficient hum of life. Captain Valerius Rourke slumped against the cargo crate, exhausted but alive. Beside him, Archivist Elias Thorne carefully placed the ancient iron cannonball back in its velvet-lined box. Humanity was saved. But the cost was subtle. The galaxy now viewed humanity as the sentimental hoarders, forever seen as a species burdened by its past, resistant to progress, and terribly inefficient. Other species, while grateful for their salvation, often kept their distance, finding human societies perplexing due to their unwavering attachment to obsolescence, their strange risk assessment on legacy assets. Humans, in turn, found themselves grappling with a new, profound, and sometimes overwhelming burden, the literal carrying cost of their history. Resources became scarcer due to their refusal to discard, and the constant maintenance schedule of their useless heritage became a significant societal drain, impacting their forward-looking projections. They were the galaxy's reluctant archivists of the obsolete, forever paying the price for their love of things that didn't make sense, maintaining a non-liquid asset portfolio with no logical dividend. Valerius chuckled, a low, weary sound. He looked at the polished brass console, then at Elias. The universe had wanted perfect efficiency. Humanity had given it the beautiful, chaotic, utterly pointless burden of memory. And sometimes, the greatest defense was simply refusing to divest.